Hello everyone, and welcome to the short talk today about the real estate course at Ulster University. My name is Dr. Leslie Hemphill and I'm the course director of the real estate undergraduate programme at Ulster University. And on the slide you can see my contact information in terms of both email and telephone number if you want to follow up with me for any further information related to the programme. What I want to run through this morning is give you an overview as to why you should consider studying real estate at Ulster. What exactly will you learn if you come onto our programme? How will you be taught? How will we support you in your learning experience? What our current students and graduates think of the programme and what career opportunities are available to you. So let's start by contextualizing why you might want to consider real estate at Ulster. First and foremost, any course that you're looking to apply for in its subject discipline will have some sort of a league table linked to it. For the real estate course at Ulster, we're currently ranked 3rd in the UK, and over the last number of years we've been consistently in that top 5 performing within our subject discipline. So this is taken from the Complete University Guide from last year, so 2022, and in our subject discipline, which is land and property management, you can see our current status there. And this is fed into with a number of different metrics. So for instance, our student satisfaction scores, our employability, our research quality, the entry standards of the students that come onto the programme, etc. So all of that kind of feeds in to give you that overall ranking, and it also gives then an indication of the status of the course with wider industry. And to kind of support that, we have very good links with local industry and in terms of guest lectures and indeed facilitating site visits and case studies, etc. In terms of the discipline that you're going in to study, we very much sell it to students in terms of every day being different and presenting different opportunities and different challenges for you. Because if you consider real estate in its totality, you could be working in the residential sector, and every individual property is unique in terms of its characteristics and its location, etc. You could be working in commercial property, which could be anything from valuing a hotel to getting a new tenant into a shopping centre to understanding how to change a plot of land and start to understand what uses, etc., might work on it. So all of those different facets of real estate make it an exciting career opportunity because you have that opportunity to interact with different building types. Likewise, it's not going to be a job where you're tied to an office. You will be out of the office a lot of the time, and that's across a variety of different roles. So fundamentally, you could be meeting with buyers or sellers to try and capture the information about that asset, and then obviously try and match a particular property to a particular buyer, etc. Likewise, there's a lot of people that we start to liaise and interact with. So obviously there's a lot of legal documentation linked to the sale and purchase of property. So we deal quite a lot with lawyers and solicitors in that regard. If we're changing the use of a plot of land or we're developing land, we need to know what we can gain planning approval for. So we have to liaise a lot with the planning authorities. Obviously, somebody has to pay for this, so this is where the banks and the investors also would form a key contact that we would be constantly dealing with. And then you've got the developers themselves and looking for that practical advice then in terms of what use might work and how would it stack up financially, etc. Likewise, if you're selling property for somebody, you need to go out and inspect it. You need to be able to measure it up. You need to be able to put a value on it. And that requires being out and looking at that property and getting a familiarity with the surroundings of where it's located, etc. And if we're working on the more management side of things, then we could be negotiating with landlords. We could be dealing with tenants. We could could be trying to get a new tenant into a property or dealing with the issues that they might be facing in terms of any repairs that's needed, etc. The course itself has a very practical focus. Obviously, a lot of those skills that we've already mentioned rely on you having experienced some of this beforehand, if you like. So we try and make sure that our coursework is all very much geared up to what you might face out in industry. So you can see from the pictures here, this is a number of different activities that we've had with the students linked probably to coursework elements. So whether it's going out and measuring up buildings, whether it's going out and kind of getting an idea on the condition of buildings, whether it's going out and visiting a real life development site and getting an impression from industry in terms of what the core issues are, or indeed going out and interacting with industry at some of the events, etc., that they might be running. So you can see all of that gives you good skill sets that you're going to need and rely on whenever you go out to work in industry. The course itself has a strong business focus, and in many ways we actually call it an applied business degree, because a lot of the skill sets that you would learn on a more generic business degree, you're already learning and applying it within the context of the real estate discipline. So you can see economics, law, ethics, management, investment, market analysis, professional practice. A lot of those are skill sets that you would associate with a business degree, but you're applying them now very much in the context of the real estate discipline. Okay, in terms of what you'll learn and how you'll be taught, we consider there's 4 key areas that our degree covers. The first is the traditional valuation side. So if you've got a commercial building, be it an office building, or if you've got a residential building, understanding the characteristics of that building, its location factors and its demand and supply, and therefore putting a value on that property. The second core discipline is on the management side, and this is where we now are starting to look at the occupation of buildings and getting tenants in place to occupy those buildings. So this is understanding a bit more about the legalities, about putting in place a lease, about the clauses within that lease, who's responsible for what in terms of repairs, etc. And therefore you can see how that's obviously a core area again of what you need to know for whenever you go out to work in industry. On the development side, this is more about purchasing land and potentially developing up that site. So it could be purchasing a plot of land and then ultimately knocking down a building and replacing it with something else. It could be changing the use of that building to something because previous use is maybe no longer fit for purpose, etc. So there's various different facets to that. And again, we would encourage our students through our coursework, etc., to already gain exposure to what does it mean to develop up a site and return a profit, etc., on that site. The final aspect then is more looking at real estate as an investment option now, and this is a skill set that's increasingly looked for out in industry. And it's really being able to compare the returns from real estate against some of your other traditional, more investment asset classes, such as stocks and shares, etc. So understanding the rental income that you're going to get, compiling those cash flows, being able to calculate the rate of return that you get from an investment, etc., is critical to that kind of financial understanding of how real estate stacks up against those other assets. In terms of some of the core skills that you'll get, you can see from the slide here a lot of things that you would associate with the traditional real estate program. So that ethics and professional practice, that economic and financial appreciation, the ability to communicate and negotiate in terms of your buying and selling skills, being able to market a property, being able to survey it, inspect it, measure it, etc., your market analysis, your valuation skills, your appreciation of planning and property law, etc. All of those things you would associate with the real estate discipline. Increasingly, however, we're also moving into other spheres, and for instance, things like sustainability awareness and climate change and decarbonisation of the built environment, etc. All these things are new and emerging and creating additional skill sets that's needed then from industry in terms of you going out to work in that discipline. This is an overview of the programme as it currently stands. Now, it will be going through our 5-yearly revalidation in the next number of months. So some of the modules may differ slightly whenever you come onto the programme than what's advertised here, but the core kind of fundamentals that you see on the slide here will remain. So you can see level 4 is year 1, and it's quite a generic overview of the discipline, if you like, and you'll find that a number of those modules are shared and joint taught with some other first year programs. But you can see fundamentals in understanding things like sustainability, understanding building construction, understanding economics, the law and governance side of things, evaluation principles, etc. And that's given you the foundation that you need to move into more real estate specific topics at year 2 or level 5. So you can see we move from law generically at year 1 into now law related to real estate in year 2. We've moved from understanding the principles of valuation into now applying it in practice in year 2. And fundamentally, year 2 is preparing you for that compulsory placement year. So in other words, you need now a certain level of skill sets that you're going to be able to apply whenever you go out into industry. So hence it is much more real estate focused. Year 3 is obviously going out on placement. Those are all paid placement positions, and we help facilitate that with you. So we have a number of employers that would constantly look for our students, and we give you help and support in compiling CVs and then obviously going for the interviews for those placement positions. After placement year, you come back into level 6, which is year 4 of the programme, and you're really applying what you've learnt on placement in the first 2 years of the programme and getting ready for those graduate positions. So again, it's kind of a step up, but it's learning all those and applying those skill sets that you've gained across the earlier 3 years of the programme. In terms of how the course looks in its delivery, etc., typically you would have 3 20-credit point modules per semester. So across the year, you're studying effectively 6 modules. Usually those would be compiled of a 2-hour lecture and a 1-hour tutorial, and there's 12 weeks then of semester, so that equates to 36 hours of contact per module per semester. Obviously, that means that there's quite a significant part of independent study needed. So typically in a module, you would have 200 hours of time allocated to that module. Only 36 hours of it is face-to-face contact. The rest, and you can see it mentioned here, 164 hours then of independent study time. So that's you really grappling with the content that's been delivered in the lectures, preparing for the assessments, carrying out any additional directed reading or any other associated tasks linked to some of the tutorial work, etc., that we'd be asking you to do. Some modules have additional workshops, so it could be computer labs where we're getting you to do maybe some specialized software, etc., or we could be taking you out on field trips, and those could be linked into some of the assessments that you're being undertaken. A lot of the modules, it's either a combination of 50-50 split between coursework and exams or 100% coursework. So there's kind of a variety across the different modules between those that have an exam element and those that are assessed solely on coursework. And of that coursework, some is individual and some is group work, because again, industry values that ability to work within a team. So hence why we incorporate an element of group work within our assessments. In terms of support, our subject discipline, usually we have somewhere between 20 to 40 students. It just depends on any given year. So we've got relatively small class sizes, and that means that we can give you that one-to-one support that you need as you transition from college or school, coming through then obviously into the higher education discipline. We've got an open door policy. So again, all our staff are easily accessible. And if you've got any worries or concerns, you can just knock on our door if we're in, or set up an appointment, etc. And we can talk through what the issues are. In year one, you'll have an academic mentor, and then as you move through subsequent years, you'll have studies advisors. So that's an additional person that you can go to, set up a meeting, and gain further one-to-one support. We encourage students to take on a class rep role, and this is where you're really representing your peers in your year group, and you're taking forward any concerns that they might have, and then you come along to our student staff consultative meetings and discuss those issues, and we come to some agreement on how best to resolve the situation. We encourage things like WhatsApp's group or other social media avenues to try and encourage students to communicate with each other across a cohort, etc. And linked to that then is this idea of setting up your own small study groups and going in and booking some of the space within our library, etc., to enable you to grapple with the subject within the context of that smaller peer support group. We have a number of different library and career sessions, and also resilience sessions, so kind of how you can help manage that transition to come into university, what's kind of the stresses that you'll face, how to cope with those, etc., and how then to link this all into the career that you see for yourself going forward once you graduate. And we also have a very strong student wellbeing support network. So the student wellbeing arm of the university is there to offer advice on counselling, advice on how to deal with stress and mental health and any other issues that you might be facing as you come through the programme, and obviously liaise with us then in any measures that we might need to put in place, such as additional time and examinations, etc., depending on any issues that have been identified that need to be supported in that way. Just in terms of some of the students that are either current students or graduates of the programme, so this is one of our current second year students who's now currently on placement, and you can see that Johnny decided to apply because he had a keen interest in property, and he liked the architectural design and the wider sales process, and I suppose got used to it from watching some of the shows that you see on the TV, etc., and then thought, I would like to do that as a career. He came through from an A-level route, and you can see that he studied English, business and religion. And it's important to state that we don't stipulate the subjects that you have to study to come onto the programme, because we're really looking for students that have a passion in the discipline. And obviously some students do a mix of BTECs and A-levels, or do straight A-levels, or come through from some of the further education colleges and do some of the BTECs, or indeed foundation degrees, etc. So there's a mix of different routes available to come onto the programme. In terms of what he enjoys on the course, you can see that he has said that he likes the flexibility that it allows. So the fact that you know your timetable and you know the hours of contact time that you're going to have, and then he could still do a part-time job whilst obviously managing his time in terms of that independent study time to make it work for him. In terms of projects or team working examples, he's given the example of going out to measure up an office space in Belfast city centre, and obviously it's a core skill that you're going to need for going out onto placement or into graduate positions. In terms of the support, he felt that we were accommodating if you needed extra time, and that he was able to raise issues with the studies advisor, etc. So that further support network that we had mentioned. He's currently on placement then with Jerry O'Connor Estate Agents, and upon completing his course, he's hoping that it'll leave him in a good position to go into a variety of different roles and thereby increases overall employability. And that's kind of a core strength of the programme. You're not pigeoned into one particular area. You can decide to specialise in either residential or commercial. Even within those fields, you could decide, I want to be a valuer, or I want to be a property manager, or I want to move into the investment area, etc., etc. So there's a number of different opportunities open for you. Andrew Knox then is one of our graduates from the programme. He's currently working for British Land over in London, and as you can see, he's the retail leasing manager. He got into the course through family connections and then spent some time working in a local estate agents over the summer, and that kind of confirmed that this was the course that he wanted to study. He actually came in from a BTEC route, so he did the BTEC National Diploma in Construction at the Northern Regional College. In terms of enjoyment of the course, he liked the variety of different modules and the fact that one day you could be on site surveying a building or inspecting a building for its defects, etc. And the next, you could be in a lecture about property law, or you could be learning the fundamentals of valuation. So there is a good variety of different subjects on offer. In terms of real world experience, he talks about obviously the placement year that you have out in industry and the importance of it and working in that office atmosphere, and how that put him on the right pathway in terms of gaining then graduate employment. In terms of support, again, he feels that the staff were very supportive, that we were very much looking out for students' progression and looking to support their performance as much as possible. And that included arrangement of placement jobs, reviewing our dissertations, etc. And in terms of his current job, he worked in commercial agency in Belfast and then subsequently moved to London to take on his current role with British Land. And his focus really then is on the retail assets, both shopping centres and retail parks, and how he can create and maintain value through the leasing and the asset management of those. Our final graduate then is Mark Johnson, who's working locally for OKT, O'Connor, Kennedy and Turtle in Belfast. Again, he wasn't sure what to do, but he had attended an open day and liked what he had heard and decided, yes, it was a course worth pursuing. He actually came in as a direct entry student into year 2 after studying the foundation degree in property planning and housing at Belfast Met. In terms of the course, again, he liked the modules that were linked to law and valuation, but he felt that most of the modules were relatable back to the real world. So again, giving you the skill sets that you need to go out into industry. Again, mentions the skills that he was able to build up on placement. Again, he makes reference to that open door policy in terms of being able to raise any issues or concerns that he had. And he's currently a chartered commercial property surveyor within the agency and valuation departments of OKT. So he deals with sales and lettings of commercial properties, as well as RICS Red Book valuations. And in terms of the course preparing him for his current role, you can see he makes reference to the fact that he uses a lot of the skill sets learned from the course in his day-to-day role, but it also helped meet some of the core competencies that he needed for his assessment of professional practice to gain his RICS membership. So again, this is the professional recognition that you need whenever you go out into industry to show that professionalism that you've gained from your work experience. Okay, so just to finish up briefly in terms of the career opportunities that's available. So I've already mentioned how you can specialise in different areas. The main one, excuse me, that our students tend to go out and work in is in the commercial real estate sector. And you can see a number of international brand names here that our students have gone on to work for. So the likes of CBRE, Colliers, Savills, JLL, Knight Frank, Cushman and Wakefield, etc. They have branches right across the globe, and we do have students working as far afield as Dubai and Qatar and Australia, etc., from our program. Likewise, there's some of the local estate agent or commercial agents, so the likes of Lisney, OKT, Osborne King, etc., would be a more Belfast or Dublin-based companies, but again, really good experience for anybody that goes to work for those companies. Likewise, on the residential side, we can see a number of these names. Most of them will be familiar to you, or some of them will certainly be on billboards close to where you live, etc. So again, it's an option to go into the residential agency side if that's what appeals to you. And there's a chance to take a placement with one of these and decide after your placement, well, is it residential or is it commercial that you want to decide to specialise in? And we also get a number of our students employed in the public sector. So the likes of Land and Property Services, LPS, that deal with both the domestic and commercial rates would be a big employer. Likewise, some of the city councils take on our students in the wider development and regeneration roles. And people like the housing executive or some of the housing associations, etc., again, are taking on some of our real estate students in that wider property management role, etc. And the final sector is really on that more investment and development side. So we'd already heard about British Land in terms of Andrew's role there, but also companies like McAleer and Rush, which is on the more development side, or indeed the Titanic Quarter in developing up a big plot of land and deciding what uses, etc. You can see Lidl mentioned there. Again, it's more in the development arm of Lidl. It's not preparing you to go out and work in a supermarket, but obviously Lidl are purchasing up land and deciding where best to locate their various different supermarkets. So you could be working in that area of agreeing the next plot of land and deciding where best to position those supermarkets. We've got really good sponsorship from industry. So we've got 6 different partners represented on the slide there that sponsor cash prizes for the top performing students across the different year groups. So the top 2 students in years 1, 2, and 4 gain a cash prize, and again, the best placement student also gains a cash prize. So you can spend that on anything, and it looks good in your CV to show that you've had an award during your years of studying. So just to summarise, we're currently ranked 3rd for our subject discipline in the Complete University Guide. It's a 4-year, very much vocational programme, so that practical element is coming through strongly with a compulsory placement, although it's optional if you come through from the foundation degree route. It's accredited by our professional body, which is the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, and the anticipation is that you're going on to sit those professional exams, which would gain you membership then of the RICS. Average intake, somewhere between 25 and 35 students, and on average we would have 25 to 35% of those being female. We're obviously in the process of moving into our new campus. So our course will be based in the Belfast campus near the Cathedral Quarter there. So this is quite an exciting move because obviously it's very modern, state-of-the-art facilities, and we're also close to a number of the different things that we would want to potentially take you out and view in that city centre location. Again, this just summarises some of the information, and you can see your QR code there that again will link you through to the programme and the prospectus pages, etc. But a lot of this is information that I've already run through, so do take the time to go and have a look at it in more detail. And as I mentioned, there is kind of that caveat around us constantly updating our programs. So there will be some modules that may change slightly. As I say, we're not anticipating major changes to our program, but there could be some slight tweaks of content. And that's more to meet what industry is looking for, to make sure that we're constantly kind of keeping up to date with what industry expects of us. If you need more information, you can visit the Study at Ulster web pages. And again, if you're obviously getting ready to apply, the code that you need for the real estate programme is the K291 code. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you found that interesting, and do please follow up with me if you've got any further questions. Thank you.